So we can do a couple of things.
All right.
I go to Comcast once a year to do a state of the town. With your gallery. If you guys ever want to organize it.
All right, there we go. Thank you. So the time being 6 o'clock, and this being the Plymouth Select Board, I will call to order the June 10th, 2025 meeting of Plymouth Select Board, coming to you from the Cedarville Fire Station Community Room. This meeting of the Plymouth Select Board is taking place in a hybrid format. Members of the board are joining us here at the Cedarville Community Room. Members of the board may be joining us via Zoom. We also have a large number of members of the public in attendance physically, and we may have others on the Zoom as well. Members of the public who are interested in attending this meeting may join us here in person at the Cedarville Fire Station Community Room or over the Zoom webinar platform. The login information for the Zoom webinar platform is, as always, included on the agenda that is posted on the town website. Members of the public are also reminded, pursuant to Massachusetts general law, that any person may make an audio or video recording of an open session of a meeting of the Select Board after notifying the chair, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair, so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any recordings. Presently, I'm aware of a recording being made by the local scene for the cable broadcast, which will be on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 47, as well as for the Zoom component of tonight's meeting. I am not aware of any other broadcasts or any other recordings, rather, being made at this time. So that will bring us into the first item on our agenda, which would be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We have a few administrative notes at the top of our agenda, 1 through 3. Wish of the board in regards to the 3 listed administrative notes.
Mr. Chair, if my colleagues don't wish to take them separately, I would make a motion to approve administrative notes 1 through 3.
All right, Mr. Golden has moved. Do I have a second?
I second.
Ms. Iaquinto has seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
And myself, yes. It is unanimous. We have approved administrative notes 1 through 3. Thank you. That brings us into what will be our next item, which is the town manager's report. We're going to have Mr. Brindisi give a report. We do this often at select board meetings, talking about what's going on in the town, what's coming up in the town. I asked Mr. Brindisi tonight, because we are in Cedarville, to give a report that talks more about what's happening here and what is going to be happening here, this is part of our outreach to our residents. After that, we're going to go into our public question and answer session, and I will talk about that when we get to that. But for now, I will turn it over to Mr. Brindisi, our town manager.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for having us this evening. So as the chairman pointed out, a number of the items I will discuss tonight are specifically items that you're interested here in South Plymouth, but they're in no certain order. There are other items I want to just bring to the attention of the Select Board and to the community at large as well. So with that being said, I will start with the Atlantic Country Club. So as you all know, back in late March, the town received a purchase and sale agreement from the owner of the Atlantic Country Club for a $20 million sale price. The town has 120 days to act on its first right of refusal. After the first review of that initial purchase and sale agreement, we found a number of deficiencies. We identified those deficiencies and sent that back to the seller and owner of the property. We then subsequently received a second purchase and sale agreement on May 20th. That review of that purchase and sale agreement, we still have another 120 days to review that. We have 30 days to review it and 30 days to act. Currently, the review is under executive session with town council, so there'll be more to come on the Atlantic Country Club potential sale. So I want to stay on the housing topic for a moment. As you all know, the Claremont project is a 300-unit 40B project over in Colony Place. It's currently under review of the ZBA. It has a letter of support by the Select Board going back to last December. The ZBA last night continued the public hearing until July 21st. Why that is important is because just last week we were notified by another developer, Pulte developer, who has submitted its application for site eligibility at Mass Housing. They are proposing an additional 163-unit 40B project over on right off of Court Street. So why these two are intertwined with one another is because if the ZBA goes ahead and approves the comprehensive permit, which they will have to, we cannot deny the comprehensive permit, but once they do, the town will be in safe harbor. Once we are in safe harbor, we have 2 years in which the town does have the ability to deny any 40B project. So again, like I just mentioned, the Pulte project is sitting with Mass Housing right now. If ZBA approves the Claremont project prior to application of Pulte to the town, we will be able to hold off the Pulte project for at least 2 years. I'd like to give the community an update on the proposed infrastructure improvement projects over at State Road and Herring Pond Road, and State Road and Hedges Pond Road. So Mass DOT approved the intersection of State Road and Hedges Pond Road on May 28th. This intersection was approved to be added to the State Road and Herring Pond Road overall project as one project now consisting of both intersections, including the section of State Road between each intersection. Project approval does not secure the necessary funding to build the project, but it is a major hurdle at this point. The project will still need to be programmed on the state TIP program, which is very competitive. The project was approved for a total contract cost of $19.3 million. The town has now contracted with GPI to begin the design of the project and coordinate with Mass DOT. We will schedule public information meetings as the project design advances, but this could be at least a few months away as we enter into the design period. And as we mentioned in the past, we're projecting the design cost to be about $1.6 million. The $1.6 million will be paid through the proceeds of the sale of 71 Hedges Pond Road. The Long Pond Road and Halfway Pond Road intersection update. This work is going to be moving forward with Lawrence Lynch Corporation. They're expected to start the intersection of Long Pond and Halfway Pond Road on June 23rd. So you'll see, if you go in that area, you'll see that there is some work that's taking place currently. That's a different contractor, a contractor by the name of Pawtucket Hot Mix. They've currently milled the Halfway Pond Road section from West Long Pond Road to Halfway Pond Road. So that's why you've seen some work out there so far. The paving of this section should occur late this week and into early next week. The road is open to traffic with one lane alternating with work hour restrictions from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Staying on the topic of streets and sidewalks, Justine Road neighborhood, you'll notice that the same contractor is in place, Pawtucket Hot Mix. They're working on 12 streets in the Justine Road neighborhood and will work in those areas over the next several weeks.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
you please speak up, because there's a lot of people in the back and your voice is really soft.
Yeah, maybe it's not, isn't the mic not picking me up? Okay. Should I start over? Well, okay, see, it wasn't me. The mic's same place, same location. So one thing I also want to bring up, if we could, Jade, we get a lot of phone calls from folks asking when their road is going to be paved. So the board just received a presentation by our DPW a couple weeks ago on the pavement management program for this construction season. So if you go to the town's website, you go under the DPW, and then under engineering, there's a tab, click on construction projects, and then you'll see a link for roadway improvements. This is the roadway improvements section of the website, and you'll see 3 tabs there. has the chip seal projects and the other two, which I can't read this far away. So those that are interested, again, you can see clearly if your street is programmed for this summer's construction season. I want to thank Commissioner Michelle Brady today. This morning over at the Mayflower House, the Commissioner of Health and Human Services had the second annual Arise program. This is a project that the town has received will receive approximately $16 million over a 10-year period to award grantees to reduce fatal and non-fatal overdoses. So this morning, Commissioner Brady awarded High Point Treatment $53,000 for their work, and then the Sheriff's Department will receive an additional $26,000, again, to focus on addiction services here in the community. As far as 71 Hedges Pond Road, I received a communication today that the excavations have begun to establish the next phases of grading in preparation of building pad sites and restoration of wetlands. You will start to see trucks leave the site where gravel will start to be removed from the site to prepare this area for these pads. I also received notice today that the developer is finalizing terms of several large square footage lease agreements. The gravel removal is incidental to the construction of the project. And then the last thing I just want to bring up for the community, there's been a lot of media attention to the school department around an individual that was found taking money in school products. So I just want to let the community know and rest assured that there are a number of internal controls that are in place to try to prevent theft. So we do three things on an annual basis. So one, we have a financial audit. Every year, the town goes through a financial audit. We bring in outside auditors that look at our finances, they look at our payroll to try to determine that our checks and balances, our internal controls are in place. In addition to the financial audit, we also do what is known as an A133 audit. That's required by the federal government. So any community that receives federal funds more than $750,000 has to go through a separate audit called A133 audit. And then last, the town has employed a full-time internal auditor for years. Our internal auditor focuses most of her effort on the finance department reconciling cash and receivables on a monthly and annual basis. This internal auditor also audits special areas like health, dental, life insurance, for example. And part of what we do during the financial audit is typically we sit down, the finance director, myself, and we decide which department that we want to focus our energy on during that audit process. So, for example, if there's a department that handles a lot of cash, we would ask the external auditors to look at that department and dive a little bit deeper on their processes and any internal controls that they have. So we're always constantly in an auditing mode. I can say, though, if there's a will, there's a way. If somebody wants to steal, they will find a way to steal. And, we rely on those internal controls and those policies and procedures to try to prevent that type of theft. Pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brindisi, could you repeat the sections in regards to Atlantic Country Club and the local intersection work, just for the people in the back due to the audio
Sure.
difficulties we had
I
at
can
that
do that.
segment?
So the Atlantic Country Club, and what was the other one, Mr. Chairman?
The local intersection work improvements?
Gotcha. So I'll start with the roadway improvements. So the State Road and Herring Pond Road and State Road and Hedges Pond Road, both of those have been approved by Mass DOT as one large project. This intersection project was approved to be added to the State Road and Herring Pond Road project, consisting of not just the intersections, but also the section of road in between those two intersections. Project approval does not secure the necessary funding to build the project, but is a major hurdle at this point. The project will need to be programmed under the state TIP program, which stands for Transportation Improvement, which is a competitive process. The project as a whole was approved by the state so far for a total contract cost of $19.3 million. The town is now contracted with the GPI to begin the design of the project and coordinate with Mass DOT. As we move further on the design phase, we expect to hold public information meetings as the project design advances, but that could take a few more months. And I just want to remind folks that we're thinking that it's going to be about $1.6 million to design this, these two intersections, and that we will use the $2 million proceeds that was generated from the sale of 71 Hedges Pond Road in order to design these two intersections. As far as the Atlantic Country Club, as I mentioned earlier, so the town received from the owner and seller of the Atlantic Country Club a purchase and sale agreement back in late March of approximately $20 million. As you know, this land is held in Chapter 61 status, which gives the town 120 days first right of refusal. The town reviewed that initial purchase and sale. We found it defective. Once we found it defective, the town issued a letter to the seller, owner of the property, and then the seller owner then issued a second purchase and sale agreement to the town on approximately May 20th. Currently, we are reviewing this purchase and sale agreement. Because we found it defective the first time, our 120 days clock has restarted. And because of that, we have 30 days to review the second P&S. That review is currently held with Town Council and with the Select Board through executive session. And so more information will come as that review process concludes. Did you want me to talk anything about Claremont, Pulte?
Sure, you can
Okay.
mention that.
So as I quietly mentioned earlier, Claremont is a project, it's a 30B project, a 40B project that was approved by the Select Board through a letter of support back in December. It's a 300-unit project that's going to be constructed over at Colony Place. That project, although it was approved by the state, still has to go through the ZBA comprehensive permit process. So right now, that was the first hearing was held last night at the ZBA. The hearing was continued until July 21st. So this is really important information because just last week, we received another 40B application from another developer who is proposing a 163-unit project off of Court Street. This application is now sitting with Mass Housing for site eligibility. If the ZBA approves the Claremont project prior to the submittal of Pulte to the town then enters what is known as safe harbor. Safe harbor gives the town 2 years of a suspense on having to consider any other future 40B projects. So we're kind of at a race right now, hoping the ZBA approves a Claremont project. If they were to approve that, then we could stop the Pulte project for at least 2 years from taking place. If the ZBA delays its review and approval and Pulte submits its application to the town prior to the ZBA approval, then the Pulte project will continue to move forward and we will not have safe harbor. So it's just really important for the folks to know when we talk about 40B projects, we have very limited ability to control 40B projects. In fact, we have zero ability unless we're in safe harbor. So we're approaching safe harbor because the Claremont project is 300 units. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brindisi. Any questions from members of the board for Mr. Brindisi at this time? All right, hearing and seeing none. Thank you. All right, so that brings us into our next item on our agenda, that being the main reason that we're here tonight, which is public question and answer session. So members of the public that observe select board meetings generally know that we often have a section on our agenda called public comment. At public comment, members of the public are invited to come up either in person or over Zoom and give remarks to the select board for up to 3 minutes. Sometimes they ask for additional time, and sometimes they are granted that. But typically at public comment, we don't respond. We allow the public to speak to us, but we don't get into a debate or discussion in the event that they disagree with us, and we don't, if they're heaping praise on us, we don't thank them profusely. What we wanted to do this evening is different from that. So this is not public comment. You can choose to use your time for public comment if you would like. I'm not going to force you to ask us questions. But if you would like, you can come forward and ask questions of us. We will try and answer those questions as best we can, and we will try and get through as many topics as we can. So the structure we have in mind is we would still give each individual asker of questions that comes up 3 minutes. I'd like to ask folks to stick to a topic to start with. We'll have 3 questions and answers on a given topic, and then we'll switch to a different topic. Now, if there's more questions on a given topic, we can go back, but I just don't want, if there's somebody in the back that wants to talk about this thing over here, and 10 people get up over here, I don't want it to be too imbalanced on what. We have no time limit on this meeting, so we're just trying to keep it orderly and get through as many topics as we can. And I'm sure, like most things, this will not go as perfectly as we planned, but we are going to be here, and we are going to work through it and try and get answers for people and talk to our residents. That is why we want to be here and what we want to do this evening. When you come and ask a question, there's going to be priority for those that are in physical attendance, so then we'll ask people on the Zoom as well. If you are in physical attendance, I will call on you. I would ask that you come to the microphone to ask your question so that it can be captured for the broadcast and for the people on Zoom. So just come up, stand at the microphone, ask your questions, just like if you are a town meeting member, it'd be similar to when you speak at town meeting. For folks on Zoom, their audiovisual is already taken care of. The microphones are always on. When we are in the Great Hall meeting, we can turn them on and off. Our microphones are going to be on for the entire meeting for those of us that have them, so just be mindful of that when you're standing in front of the mic. All right, so with that in mind, does any member of the public have a question? Yes, Catherine Holmes.
So first off, I just want to thank every single person that showed up tonight. I am absolutely thrilled with the attendance that we have this evening. There were people trying to get in and they couldn't. Parking lot was full. We have people out in the hallway looking to ask the select board members questions. So first and foremost, I want to thank South Plymouth for showing up tonight. And I just think we should just give everyone a round of applause. I really appreciate the support. Well done, South Plymouth. Secondly, I want to thank the select board for doing this. I think it was absolutely the right thing to do. Being able to reach out to the residents and hear their concerns right from their mouth is really important, and it will drive how this new board manages itself, I think, in the future. So I'm really thrilled to see that. I'm not going to ask a question right now because I want the folks in the room to be able to take the time, and I'll say, but thank you so much for showing up. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Any other, yes?
Good evening. My name is Joel Coffin. I am West Pond Road, Precinct 10, a new town meeting member. I'm here kind of representing the members of the town meeting members of my precinct. They asked me to come and speak tonight regarding a significant concern among the residents in Precinct 10, and that is the potential expansion of our airport and the corresponding increase in jet traffic. This issue has been raised by residents of the precinct to me as a top concern both before and since the May election. I've been closely observing the Citizen Advisory Committee meetings, and while their work has been valuable in terms of education and comment, I've noted a lack of substantive discussion specifically on the airport expansion. The critical issue has primarily surfaced only during public comment portions of those meetings. The residents we represent are eager to understand the Select Board's current thoughts and official position on this matter. We're open to collaborating with you. And transparent discussion about the airport's future is essential for our community. And I want to thank you all for your time and for doing this. This is a fantastic opportunity for the residents to ask questions and actually get answers. And I really want to applaud the Select Board for deciding to have these open forums. That's all.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the airport expansion. So memory serves, there was an article in regards to, I think it was a 501-foot expansion proposal to one of the runways at the airport on the warrant for the April 2024 spring town meeting. That did not pass at that time. The cited justification from the airport for that was for safety, that there was an interest from the FAA by having that runway longer. It would increase safety for planes taking off and I think particularly landing at that airport. Since that expansion article had failed, to my knowledge, there has not been a renewed initiative at this time to put that forward, although I know there is still continued community interest and concern about the airport. I will say, although I live in North Plymouth now, I grew up in West Plymouth, not far from the airport, so I'm familiar with the operations of the airport. And I know that several of the residents are concerned about the existing flights, be they propeller or jets there, and that the airport commissioners and the Select Board formed that community, that Citizens Advisory Committee rather, to try and give people more of a voice. That they've only relatively recently started their work, so I think seeing it over the course of time what that work will look like and produce. But I know that the airport is sensitive to the concerns, although not as sensitive to the concerns as some residents would like, because I CC them a lot of emails, so I'm aware of that. But I know there is a vocal member, there are vocal members of the community that are raising those concerns consistently. So I guess as of right now, there's, as far as I know, no immediate desire to renew that April warrant article, April 2024 warrant article. It was based on safety, not based on, not a desire to bring in more jets, although I know not everybody agrees with that assessment. The primary way that the airport derives revenue is from, the airport is an enterprise fund, meaning it is a fund that is designed to essentially, if everything works well, be self-sustaining, so that the money coming in is basically like a business. It's supposed to cover its own operating costs. Retained earnings are the profits that, if it were a private business, are kept and then are used for future capital improvements. The bottom line benefits to the runway expansion would have been that they could have sold more fuel to outgoing planes, because they still wouldn't be able to fully laden the planes with fuel, but they'd be able to put in more fuel if they had the extra 501 feet. But obviously they can't do that right now. So that was what the airport said at the time. As far as I know, that is still the airport's line on that. There are some jets there, but there's not currently a desire to bring increased jet traffic. And I know, believe me, I know the community is not in support of increased jet traffic at this time. Anyone else wish to converse about the airport? Mr. Cohan.
I don't have too many buttons. Am I on?
Yes, you're always on.
Okay.
Remember that.
Mics are hot. Joel Coffin, thank you very much. You are a town meeting for Precinct 10 now. Is this your first service? Congratulations. I just went down with 27 years on town meeting floor. So I know the debate well around this article and many articles, and having grown up in Plymouth, in knowing the importance of the airport, but also knowing the importance of the quality of life of the neighbors. As a town meeting member, I did not support the expansion of that runway at this time. So I hope to have a healthy communication with the neighborhood and the residents about that, because many, many people live around that neighborhood. They've bought homes, they've invested their lives in it. Those properties need to perform over a period of time for the family to be protected about retirement and the events that they'll have to manage in that point in time. So people are living there with their greatest investment. And so we need to be attentive to protecting those values by not seeing an airport become a detriment to the values of those properties in that vicinity. So I'll look forward to working with that neighborhood. But thank you very much for your comments, and thank you for joining town meeting. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on the airport expansion? Okay. If there's not, then we can move on. Mr. McKay, did you want to?
Yeah, I have some prepared comments made so I don't get in trouble like I normally do and say you speak too much. But I did want to take a few minutes to welcome everybody here, and in particular welcome the Select Board. And we really appreciate you being here. And Ms. Holmes said some of the things I was going to say. Welcome, everybody. I also wanted to point out this is in the heart of Cedarville, where we're meeting right now. But involved in this same area is precincts 9, 12, 14, and 16. And many times when we have meetings here in this room, particularly with the Cedarville Steering Committee, people from those precincts show up, and sometimes the crowd is as large as we have tonight. So anyway, thank you for coming. I wanted to point out, I don't want to go through all the precinct members that are participating, but I just wanted to point out that in the Cedarville Steering Committee, since Marcia Sheridan has taken over, we've had crowds like this appear at every committee meeting. In addition to that, right down the street, we have the Little Red Schoolhouse, and they're doing a great job, and their leadership is headed with Jody Burkett. The other thing I wanted to mention, I moved down here full-time about 15 years ago, and I live right near the White Cliffs, right near the intersection of Route 3 and Route 3A. And one of the things I did when I first moved here, I said, this is a problem. We ought to work on it. And so here we are 15 years later, and thanks to everything we've done, which Mr. Brindisi talked about, I think we may have a solution that I will see in my lifetime. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm sure this will be brought up by other people, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And I'm going to read this verbatim, and you'll get more on this later. With the sale of 41 Hedges Pond Road for light industrial use, and the clearing of the land and the sand mining that was done or allowed, there is a possible danger to the health of some residents in Cedarville. The property lies west of the closed Cedarville landfill. The Cedarville landfill was closed in the late 1995, I believe, and it was capped, but it was not sealed or lined. The changes in the property at 41 Hedges Pond Road, which is, quote, upstream from the old landfill, has an impact on the aquifer, and thus it may affect, i.e. contaminate, the well water supply of some Cedarville residents between that particular site and Cape Cod Bay. On a long-term basis, the state of Massachusetts is likely to pass legislature this fall focused on sand mining. Bill H.R. 948 proposes a one-year moratorium on sand mining, and House Bill number H.R. 918 proposes a 2-year study of sand mining and its negative effects and suggestions on how to control those negative effects. However, Cedarville has an immediate need to define its effects locally to protect its citizens. When the Cedarville landfill was capped, the town extended the town water supply so that residences did not have to rely on their well water. This may not have been enough given the current situation of the changes that are occurring in the underground aquifer from the current developments.
Mr. McKay, you've exceeded your 3 minutes. Would
I
you
have
like
one,
additional
I have one
time?
more sentence.
Okay, great.
The town may need to expand its water supply infrastructure to protect additional people soon, and very soon. And on this subject, I'm sure you'll hear more to come into the town meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. McKay. All right, any other members of the public have any other items? Yes, please come to the mic and identify yourself.
Yeah, my name's Mark Dahlgren, and I moved to Cedarville 11 years ago. I wanted to expand on one of his comments around the intersection and the traffic issue here.
Okay.
Under Marsh's leadership, in October, the committee fielded a questionnaire. We got 346, I believe, returns on that, which was a very good return rate. And it really emphasized the database need for the urgency of getting this thing done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really gratifying to see the fact that it made the list to get consolidated so that it's a project that's got the kind of scope we need. Maybe not enough. Maybe there should be a little more going south and north on this. But
Okay.
Having said that, that was very gratifying. But we also need to get it funded, okay? And at least what I had heard from the committee was that funding it could be, you know, maybe up to 6 years before anything happened. And what I'd like to ask of you all is, you know, is there anything that you can do, and are you willing to do as a committee, you know, that really has a lot of importance in Plymouth, to try and expedite this thing? I know we've got, you know, a new state representative, we've got a new state senator, and both of them we've talked to, and they are trying to get state money, and I think that probably was a lot of what was behind the recent decision to get those projects in the TIP. But what is the position of the select board now? And what can you do to make this happen, you know, in significantly less than 6 years?
Sure.
So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you for the question. So, we have a representative from State Representative Badger's office in attendance. She was just informing us that Representative Badger and Representative Lanatra, all our House filed legislation today in support of
Sorry, we sent a letter
Letter?
to all parties at DOT in support of the project.
she sent a letter to DOT and all state entities in support of the project. And I know that Representative Badger, since she was elected, has been very involved in coming to community events. This is her area of the town. Representative Lanatra represents the northern and western parts of the town. But I know that they're very involved, as is Senator Fernandez in that. Because it is an intersection that involves state roads and state territory, we do have to work with the state. It's not as easy. Repairing town roads also presents some challenges for us, just based on the sheer quantity of them. But we are very interested in working with our state delegation in regards to trying to get this work accomplished. I will say anecdotally, I drive through this intersection, despite living in North Plymouth, I do drive through this intersection at least a couple of times a week because I'm down here fairly often. And I am well aware of the dangerous conditions in which there's been several times where I just have to hope for the best when I'm pulling out. There's only so much you can do. So I'm very cognizant of the danger there, and especially for people that do it not just a couple times a week, but every day. I imagine that especially for how long it's been going on, that it is very troubling to folks. So that is something that we are interested in. Now, the board broadly has been putting more of a, not just this board, but recent prior boards has been trying to put a more emphasis on improving roads throughout the community over the last several years. We're going to continue that focus as well for anyone on any other roads or adjacent roads that are completely town-owned. But yes, this intersection, we are working with the state. We're going to continue working with the state on this to try and solve this problem. We are very aware of it. We've earmarked some funds in our possession to contribute to that, and we're also working with the relevant state agencies and actors to try and facilitate that.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. I see a hand up. Is this in relation to this topic? Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Jerry Williams, and I'm a town meeting member representing Precinct 8. And I live over on Great Herring Pond. I'm very close to this intersection and use it often. I am wondering, because everything we've seen in the past, over the last 5 years or so, talk about rotaries. And I know that we have 1.6 million estimated to do the design work. I'm wondering whether anything has, because of the increased traffic that we've been experiencing lately. I mean, frequently when I come from the Little Red Schoolhouse to come here to Cedarville, it's backed up all the way to the exit ramp heading towards the Cape there. I mean, it takes me a good 5 minutes to get through the intersection. I don't see where a rotary is really going to handle this kind of traffic, which is only increasing. And I'm wondering if there's anything that the town can do to influence, to look at signal lights rather than a rotary, because rotaries will only handle so much traffic. And I think we will soon find that that's not going to be very helpful, the rotaries, and that we really need traffic signals. And so I'm hoping that if there's any way that we can influence the state to look at traffic signals rather than rotaries, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure. So, yeah, Mr. Brindisi, did you want to take the lead on that one?
I can, because I recently had a conversation with the DPW director on that very issue. So I first start by saying that MassDOT, their preference is always rotaries because they believe it keeps traffic moving. However, in the two intersections that we're talking about, Bill Coyle, our DPW director, believes that signalization at the intersection at Hedges Pond Road, that intersection there, there's a strong likelihood that that will trigger a signal. But they are, I guess my point is, they are looking at all the options, and they're not already assuming that both of them are going to be rotaries, that they will explore signalization, if not at both of them, certainly one of them.
And yes, Don, is this also in relation to this topic? Yes, it is. Absolutely, come on up.
I just want to say, Don Williams, Herring Pond. The problem with the rotary is that the rotary has a finite capacity. You can't change it once you get it there. And by the time the job gets done, there's a decent chance that it's already going to be beyond capacity. So it's an issue that most people know about. So I just urge you to be careful with that one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just to remind folks, during my initial presentation, I did state that there will be community meetings on this very issue. So stay engaged. We will continue to advertise when those community meetings take place, and please voice your concern.
Yes, and that's a good segue too. If you didn't on your way in, there's sign-in sheets on your way in where you can sign up with your name, your precinct number, if you know it, and an email address. We can sign you up so that you can get notifications of our meetings. There's been some interest from the precinct chairs in attendance to have notifications sent out for precincts 8 and 9 for those that are relevant, so that you can stay more informed with your local government, so that even when town hall isn't coming to you physically, you can still come to your email inbox when possible. All right, so that's any other topics that anyone else would like to? Yes, Mr. Cunningham?
Thank you very much. Paul Cunningham, former town meeting member, member of White Cliffs Country Club. And this subject ties in with the traffic situation here. I'm talking about 0.3 of a mile heading south from here on Route 3A. Twice we've got the speed limit reduced from 40 to 30 miles an hour. The state does a test on it. They like to test in December and use calculations to what it really is. Anyways, they put it back at 40 miles an hour. So anyways, Pine Hills had a similar situation as we have now with a crosswalk down there. We had Beaver Dam Road, and unfortunately it took 2 deaths before they got some action. And that we have asked around at White Cliffs if anyone wants to sacrifice themselves, but we got no answer from the 500 residents. So basically what we're talking about is we have walkers, golf carts, and work carts. In an 11-month period, there were 57,000 crossing with work carts, 26,200 golf carts, and I don't know, some number, hundreds of walkers pushing or carrying their bags. It's 83,000 crossings. And the whole cause, previously when this subject was up in 2019, the state rep who owns the gas station, town jumped up and said, I'll handle that. That was 2019. Here we are. So anyways, I want to mention that White Cliffs Country Club has worked with the state before. We donated part of the land and reduced the margin from the center of the road to private property so you could get that turning lane to go south. And we didn't sell it or anything because it would have changed all the condo documents. So anyways, we have worked with them before, but they're not the easiest ones to work with. So one of our previous members, Roger Hatfield, he was the retired fire chief of Nashua, New Hampshire and Foxborough, Mass. He researched and we found a nice system similar to what they have at Pine Hills. It's flashing white lights that go around the existing signs that are already there and the posts. And you set them off by either take your golf club and hit a button or else you break a beam. And it causes them to flash for, pick a number, 1 to 2 minutes or something like that. No red lights, no stopping traffic, just a cautionary little set of white bulbs flashing. Roger was told in the past, White Cliffs cannot be the initiator of a change with the state of Massachusetts. It must be initiated by the town of Plymouth. And here we sit with the power in town. What could you do to move this situation forward? As I hand over the last communication I have saving for you, it's from MassDOT. It should be noted that golf carts do not have the right-of-way crossing a street, and motorists have no legal obligation to yield to golf carts trying to cross. This is adequate sight distances to allow for golf cart operators to judge the gap. And that's signed by good old Mary Jo Perry, the district highway engineer, director. Anyways, she has never faced a PA Landers gravel truck at 40 miles an hour requiring 4 car lengths to stop, and I swear sometimes they step on it when they see you there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. So we can certainly look into that particular issue with our DPW and see what we can do with the DPW.
I forgot to give you
You
the
did.
letter from MassDOT.
You did.
This is a copy. The original is kept for Morgan & Morgan for the people when you get.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we will inquire with the DPW about this crosswalk issue and bring that to their attention and see what next steps we should take in that regard. Anyone else want to talk about the crosswalk issue while we're on that subject? All right. Anyone else want to talk about another issue? Yes, in the back.
Good evening, Chris Jones, Eagle Drive. Relative to Atlanta Country Club, I have 3 questions, just to try to pick your brains a little bit. I know there's other pieces of property in town, the Holtec property. There's been previous talk about the 1,000 acres. Now this new piece of property on the Plymouth-Bourne line. I'm just curious where each individual member ranks the potential purchases of Atlanta Country Club relative to other properties in town that the town is exploring or expressed interest in. Second to that, follow-up would be, if you do get to a point where the purchase price is amenable to the town, what kind of research has you done in terms of what that would look like? Would it be an enterprise account? Would it be a revolving account? Would it be absorbed as another town department? If possible, I'd like an answer in terms of where each member ranks Atlantic in terms of importance. Thank you.
Thank you. So Atlantic Country Club and the consideration of the right of first refusal that is in the town's possession is currently in an executive session posture with the board. So this is a good opportunity to discuss why the board enters into executive sessions and what that means. So under Massachusetts general law, there's a law that we have to follow called the open meeting law. One of the provisions of that the general sense of the open meeting law is to have government be accessible, put people on notice about what's happening, give them certain protections and provisions to keep track of what's happening. There are, and generally speaking, unless a relevant exception applies, everything needs to take place in an open session so that people can see what their government is doing, why they're doing it, make an assessment about whether they want to vote these people in again or throw the rascals out. However, there are certain limited exceptions where having a meeting in an open session would be detrimental to the interest of the town, not to the members of the board, but the interest of the town. So imagine you were trying to buy a house from another individual, and obviously they're going to meet with their real estate agent and their lawyer. You're going to meet with your real estate agent and, if relevant, your lawyer about that sale. Both of those parties are going to meet privately to discuss that, because if that were happening in a public setting and you were able to tune in to your purchaser's meeting and see what they have to say about it, that would adversely affect the interest of that other party in that particular sale. So something like Atlantic Country Club, it's in the interest of Plymouth as a community for the details of how that transaction is being approached at this stage to be actually behind closed doors. And some people are uncomfortable by that because they would prefer that they knew exactly what everyone was doing at all times. And I'm certainly sympathetic to that. But if we were to have a discussion on that in an open session, the seller of that parcel, as well as the buyer, the prospective buyer right now, would be able to watch it just like you would. And that would detrimentally impact the ability of the town to exercise its legal rights and responsibilities. We do have other entities that are involved in the assessment of something like this Chapter 61, like the Land Use and Acquisition Committee, which has public meetings as well. So you can watch, those are public meetings, they're not broadcast on television. There are upwards of 45 different boards and committees in the community. Not all of them make it to TV, but they do have public meetings that are posted and attendable by members of the public. So right now with Atlantic Country Club, as was discussed by the town manager earlier, we received a notice back in March. We assessed that notice to see whether it was a bona fide offer or not. At that time, that first purchase and sale was viewed by those that reviewed it as not being bona fide for a number of reasons that have been publicized. And then we had 30 days to get back on that first notice and say, we don't think this is bona fide. This is why we don't think that. And they had the opportunity to either try and fix those issues, or the sale could have fallen apart and blown into the wind. Now, what they did is they came back and came up with a different purchase and sale. So now we are in a second period of that first 30 days of assessing, is this a bona fide offer or not? If we believe it is a bona fide offer, and right now, again, we are in that 30-day period. Last time, that 30-day period is our time, and we can send them the notice anytime within that 30-day period. We are in that 30-day period right now. If we believe it is a bona fide offer, then starting from when we received it, there would be a 120-day period where we would need to take specific action. But we can't really comment right now on the specifics of what we are doing, because that would disadvantage the interest of the town. The Select Board, though, is interested in assessing this potential property purchase and sale. and trying to protect the interest not just of this area of the community, but we view it as the community at large. Oftentimes, when these sorts of, we talked about the Pulte project earlier, which was 163 units that may or may not be built. That's right down the street from where I live. And it's possible that nobody's going to be able to stop that. So I'm very sympathetic to 40B developments coming in and affecting the character and makeup of your neighborhood. I realize I live in North Plymouth, which is already quite urban and very different from South Plymouth, and that people move to different areas of the community for different characters, different feels, different things that they're looking for. So I know it's not exactly a one-to-one, but I am sympathetic to that. But right now, I realize that it can sometimes be a lot to ask, but I would just ask that you trust that the board is trying to protect your interest and trying to do what we can in regards to Atlantic Country Club under the law, and that it's in an executive session for a reason, and it's actually in your interest for it to be at this point.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Can you educate the people in the room who are not?
Can you please take the mic?
Can you please educate the people in the room who are not as, they're not as informed as some of us that have been involved since day one on the difference between what was changed in the first initial indication that they were selling to the purchase and sale, because there are some specific differences, so you could highlight what the changes were without necessarily weighing in on your personal opinion on it.
Well, so there were some changes. The price changed a little bit. Some of the particulars, originally there were 3 parcels. Now they're including 2 that didn't have any 61. Now there's just 1 parcel down there. Getting into more of the specific things that either changed or didn't change would potentially not be in our interest to expedite, to explain in detail right now.
My understanding, though, is that the purchase and sale is a public document, correct?
Correct.
So you could summarize, and especially with your legal expertise, you could summarize this in a way that wouldn't violate your open meeting law and just let people know what it is that it includes and what the price was and how it changed.
So, yes, but again, anyone could watch this meeting in that explanation. So for right now, the 2 documents are publicly available. You can look at what is in them, and you can make an assessment yourself as to whether you believe sufficient changes have been made or not. But I would prefer not to highlight and underline any of those changes at this time. Mr. Watkins, on this topic?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Hampton Watkins. I'm the chair of the Land Use and Acquisition Committee. As Mr. Canty indicated, all of our meetings are public and open. They're announced and posted on the town webpage. We have, since the beginning, due to the good offices of Mr. Brindisi, we have been informed of this. The land in question is covered for the majority by Chapter 61B, which is recreational land. That's a chapter of state law that allows properties to be put into a tax-favored state. And whenever there is a potential proposed change of use, they will come out of 61B, there'll be back taxes and so on that are recovered for a period of 5 years in this case. And that's less the taxes that have already been paid. There's simple interest of 5%, et cetera. There are certain conditions. We've taken that into consideration. We've reviewed the public documents that came to us both in the first instance and the second instance. The first instance all of the properties were lumped together. One of the requirements of the state law is that only 61, Chapter 61, or in this case 61B land, be included in the purchase and sale, so they were separated out. The price for the total remains the same. The price for the main parcel was reduced by $1 million, and that was assigned to the two parcels right along Sandy Pond Road, adjacent to the entryway to the property in question. There's still some issues that we have identified. There are two attorneys on the Land Use and Acquisition Committee, along with a number of other citizens who are familiar with land title work. For example, one of our members has been in that business for well over 40 years. So we've reviewed the documents that are available publicly, and as I indicated, we make all of our meetings completely open to the public, and several people in the room here have attended the meetings that we've had on this subject. This past week, we reviewed the new documents for the second time. First time right after receipt, second time after having a chance to go through them and read them. And since we're an advisory committee to the Select Board, we're preparing an advice document as we do every time that a 61 property comes before us. And that's in preparation right now and should be available in the next day or two with my signature on it to the Select Board. If anyone has any questions of me, I'll be here until the end of this meeting, so please, I am we're as public and open as you can get in our advice to the Select Board, and they can then do what's best interest of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. All right, so any other residents wish to speak on any other topics that we haven't yet covered yet?
Can we still be talking about the golf course?
Not yet. We can circle back to it, but I want to make sure that if there's anyone else, that was 3 in a row on that one. So we can come back. We don't have a time constraint here. I just want to make sure that other topics get addressed as needed. So another topic that we haven't addressed yet. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Michelle Christensen. I'm a Precinct 9 town meeting member. I live on Great Herring Pond. So if many of you are not aware, many of our ponds are suffering with cyanobacteria issues. And in particular, in partnership with the town, the Herring Pond Water Association partnered with the town, had a study done. In 2020, 2021, 22, 23, we suffered with the pond having to be closed many days. The study revealed that the major part of the issue is the phosphorus, and the phosphorus is coming from wastewater, basically septic, and with the topography of the land, it's the western part of both Great Herring Pond, Little Herring Pond, and that extends all the way up into the ponds where the homes are. The ponds were built with the option from the builder to get fresh water, which you can discuss as another topic, or you can have septic. And so they went forward with the septics, and we're having many issues, obviously, because septic is still not perfect. The aquifer flows down following the topography, and that's what's basically infesting our ponds with the cyanobacteria. So my question is, not related specifically to the golf course, as you said, but basically related to any major building that we may be doing going forward in the town. Would the town, I know the comprehensive wastewater management thing coming forward, but I think it's important for the town to put its foot down and say, going forward, any large-scale building that we're going to do, we're going to require sewering, private sewering, town sewering, however you do it, but septic is not going to get us there. And we're still trying to track the cesspools, because that's even worse. That's kind of like saying, go ahead and poop in the pond, you know. But anyhow, so that's my question. How do we for basically primarily South Plymouth here, we don't have town sewer. And so, thank you.
Sure, thank you. So the issue of septic systems throughout the community is significant. We do have a sewer network in areas of the town, but it does not cover nearly as much of the town as one would hope. I mean, for example, much of North Plymouth is on a sewer, but my house is not. I have a septic, even though I live in North Plymouth. So not even everybody up in those necks of the woods has access to a town sewer. The town is quite large, which almost goes without saying, but it's unrealistic that there's anytime soon that the main town sewer is going to be coming down here. With larger developments, generally, there is an emphasis in them having their own wastewater treatment to avoid that, wastewater treatment of some kind. The scale of that can vary, like Pine Hills and Red Brook's network is a lot bigger than some that are just, say, 300 or more units. But that has generally been tried because of the massive drain that a single user like that would be with an enormous septic system and the potential issues that would cause. Longer term, probably I will not be on the board anymore, but probably at some point you might be looking at trying to have regional wastewater throughout the, because I don't think it's realistic that in any time soon we're going to have a comprehensive town-wide sewer network. But we might want to look at having different smaller municipal sewer networks over time. There's also on the horizon potentially reforms to Title V. We're seeing some of that at the state level in regards to septic with nitrogen capture systems. Phosphorus is also an issue. That's bigger than the town of Plymouth. That also puts a burden on individual residences when sales of homes are going through. So that's something we need to be conscious. There is a loan program to redo your septic if it fails at Title V, so there's some relief there for residents that are in that type of situation. But that's something that, if that were to happen, that would be at a state, right now at a state level. So we're not really relying on that. But that's sort of a broad overview on that. Does anyone else wish to, Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The community is very soon going to be launching a comprehensive wastewater master planning process. As part of that process, the committee, as well as the staff that are assigned to work with them, will be evaluating a whole variety of ways that we can address the issue of septic system here in the community. They'll look at intermunicipal agreements. You know, we might look at, like, for example, working with Bourne, who has more capacity than they are currently using. They'll look at public-private partnerships between some of the developments that have their own wastewater facilities, like Mr. Canty mentioned. They're going to explore satellite facilities, and they may even look at acquisition of facilities that are no longer in use. So it is definitely on the radar.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes. On this subject matter, time is of the essence, and we have to move quickly. I know the state is working on different things, but we do have a great deal of control over our local Title V through our Board of Health and looking at that bylaw and upgrading it when necessary. But I do think, as Mr. Canty indicated, we have examples at Red Brook and Pine Hills where they're treating the wastewater on site during that permitting process, whether it's a planning board that's reviewing it, or if it's in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit. There are orders of conditions that can be placed to incentivize the developer to look at these options, because we have learned a lot since the installation of the ponds of Plymouth. That was nearly 35 years ago when that process began. So since then, we've learned a lot, and we have to take all of those good experiences and start to implement them sooner rather than later on those boards and committees. One of the things we might be looking at is, and I'll reach out as a result of this to talk to staff as a result of possible bylaw changes to accommodate those activities when a development is reaching a certain amount of units obviously triggering different, attention to water resources in the town of Plymouth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Iaquinto.
So, Michelle, thank you so much for asking that question, and I just wanted to let everyone know that Michelle Christensen is an expert in wastewater treatment and probably knows more about it than all of us combined. So I do really appreciate your keeping this at the forefront, and I know that you'll be an asset in any of the projects that we have going forward that look at this important issue. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on the issue of septic versus sewer or phosphorus or nitrogen-related issues? Okay. Any residents in attendance physically that have Mr. Williams, is that on that topic?
I have an idea.
Okay, come up and tell us about it.
Again, Don Williams. I live on Carter's Bridge Road. This goes back to the two intersections that we'd like to get done sooner rather than later. And I understand that the town is into these intersections for a certain contribution. Back when I was a selectman equivalent in Pennsylvania in a fast-growing community, we were able to get PennDOT, that moves possibly slower than MADOT, to get us on the list sooner. And the way we did that was we offered them more money. And we're only talking about only 16 million? Only 16 million for those two intersections. But if we were to come up with another couple of $1 million out of our roads budget to dangle in front of the state and say, hey, look, does this help? So the point is, if we can come up with a little bit more money, which isn't a whole lot more extra than we would spend on another project, and yeah, somebody's got to give up. But this is a big win because that maybe $1 or $2 million is a huge leverable capacity to get maybe $12 million. That's a good deal by any Wall Street maven. So think about that as a possibility. I mean, we have that kind of money that might sweeten the till within our grasp, and we might want to decide to spend it on these two intersections.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Williams. We will certainly consider that. Yes, in the back.
Hi, Ramona Krogman, town meeting member from Precinct 9. Cedarville has been impacted by sand mining and removal, sometimes under the veil of agriculture or development. Can you provide us an understanding of the regulations for sand mining and removal, and give us a status about any commission that may be reviewing those regulations and giving us some idea of what we can expect in the future?
Sure. So we do have a gravel removal bylaw on the books that was put together, I believe, from the work of a sand and gravel bylaw committee at the time, which is not currently in operation, but is something that could be revisited. I know there is also action, there's some legislation up on Beacon Hill in regards to sand and gravel removal as well at the moment, and as was alluded to by one or more of the prior speakers, it's possible that Beacon Hill will be taking some action on a state level, which would obviously impact what we do on a local level. Right now, my understanding, the Select Board is separate and distinct from the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals, so we don't review individual projects. We do not assess the merits of whether you're going to build this building or how much you're going to do in regards to this earth removal or that, and whether that's incidental or whether it's a meaningful substantive change. That is a planning board function and has some ZBA overlap as well. But so those types of assessments are made over there. But whether or not we wanted to take action in regards to local issues, in regards to revisiting the sand and gravel bylaw, that's something that the board could consider. That's something that a petitioned article at town meeting could try and do as well. So those are some avenues in that regard. I don't know if anybody else, Mr. Cohan?
Yes, years ago, we had a sand and gravel removal bylaw committee working group that made a recommendation to the Board of Select, and eventually it was put on the warrant, went to town meeting. But it's been a number of years since we had passed that bylaw. We've had numerous experiences implementing it, and we've learned lessons, and it would probably be in the interest of the town to revisit and reconstituting the sand and gravel bylaw working group that could be assembled by the Board of Select, given specific charge to look at different aspects, where it's working, where it isn't working. Because yes, as the chairman has indicated, and as Mr. Cunningham has indicated, there's two bills on Beacon Hill, H918 and H948, both looking at addressing some of the adverse effects of the sand and gravel removal in this part of Plymouth and all over southeastern Massachusetts, not only Plymouth, but Carver and Wareham and in this vicinity. But that would be something that we should be looking into, is discussing the possibility of putting together a working group with specific charges to examine the current bylaw and come back to us in a timely manner about recommendations of improving that bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Cohan. Any other members of the board? All right. Anyone else wish to talk on the subject of sand mining?
So in the interest of being a board of action and doing, which I know you all are, the community, a lot of them have reached out to me, and we want to see something that's actually moving forward. So I like this idea. I think it's a good one. Can you commit that you'll put this on your agenda for your next meeting and take a vote on putting that committee back together so that we can have this go forward with a bylaw adjustment as needed based on what we need from our town, so that we can have something in place that can go forward for fall town meeting, and town meeting can vote on it? Can we do that?
So, thank you, Ms. Holmes. So, a couple of things. So, the board can look at, as Mr. Cohan has alluded to and I mentioned as well, reconstituting the sand and gravel, either that group or a separate and distinct group that could assess current town regulations in regards to sand and gravel removal. It's not something we could put on our next agenda because we've already finished our next agenda. What this board is trying to do is get our agendas out to our board members earlier than prior boards had done, so that what we used to get as board members, we used to get our agendas when you would see them on the website, basically. So we'd get them often on Thursday afternoons, sometimes Fridays, and then if any of us had questions for people that work at town hall, we weren't able to answer them unless we were going to bother them over the weekend, which was not always successful. And at least for me, I think people deserve, even if they work for the community, to have a work-life balance and still have time with their families and friends and live a life every once in a while. So by getting us our packets earlier, that allows us to do our homework, such as site visits, asking questions of department division heads, other presenters, over a longer period of time, and improves the quality of our work. It also means our agendas are finalized sooner. But it is something we can certainly look into putting on a near future agenda for consideration. Because I know it is an interest of concern, and not just in Cedarville in this area, but throughout the community. And I do remember it has been a number of years since we looked at it and revisited it. So that is something we can certainly consider doing. Anyone else in regards to, members of the board first? Anyone else in regards to that? All right, anyone else in regards to this topic? Yes.
Michelle Christensen again, Precinct 9 town member. I just want to add to that point, if you look at putting that group together, and coming from other towns, and it might make sense to include somebody from public health, somebody from conservation, somebody from environmental, just from the town themselves as well as obviously the public. So just make it a cross group.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and I remembered one thing I meant to say in regards to Ms. Holmes' answer that I forgot. In regards to putting it on the fall town meeting warrant, there'd be no time for that because that warrant is going to close in only a short little while. And we'd want to, if we were going to constitute a board like that, we'd need to advertise it so that people could apply for it. We need to give them a reasonable period of time to conduct their work, usually a year to 2 years to put something together like that so that you put something quality together, not something rushed. So we could start that process soon, but it's a process that would need a life cycle in order to come to fruition. And then obviously the town, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the town has town meetings in April and in October, but the warrants for those town meetings close well in advance of those so that the Advisory and Finance Committee can review all the articles and get that to town meeting members who can assess it there. So we have town meeting is not a day, town meeting is a season, and there's 2 of those seasons annually, and getting things in the queue for those seasons takes a lot of time. We are cognizant of that, but just to inform people of that process and overview so that you know how your government works and why it works the way it does. All right, so that's 3 on that. Any residents in attendance have anything on an item that we haven't discussed yet? Anyone on Zoom? On a different topic? Okay, on a different topic, yes.
Hi,
Hi.
Lauren Malillo, Precinct 8.
Hi.
I know that the non-binding referendum passed overwhelmingly, and I'm just wondering what this board is going to do regarding Holtec's evaporation.
Sure. Thank you. So this is a question in regards to the non-binding referendum. Question 2 on the May 17th ballot, which asked for town officials to communicate with relevant state actors, governor, attorney general, the legislature, state regulatory agencies about the disposition of the contaminated water at the former nuclear power plant, Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, which passed over, I think, at 86% or so of the vote at the local election in favor of us communicating with those officials on that subject. So a couple of things. So the board has a seat of a board member held by me on the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel. I serve as the chair of that board as well. So I enjoy serving as the chair of the Select Board more, but we won't get into that tonight. But so that is, we are keeping our eye on the pulse of the decommissioning throughout the process through that. We have other seats that we appoint people to, one of which we have an applicant for currently, and one of which I believe we're still looking for an applicant, although the application period is currently closed, but it will reopen soon. So if you're interested in serving in that capacity, keep your eyes peeled for that. However, we also have, we regularly communicate with our state delegation about this and other issues, and we are very cognizant of keeping them informed of our concerns about the water at Holtec and the disposition of that, as well as the dry cask storage and the future of that. I was just talking to Senator Fernandez about that yesterday, actually. And Mr. Golden and I are attending a meeting along with the town manager and a couple other town officials tomorrow with the governor, where one of the topics that we're going to be talking about is nuclear matters within Plymouth, including the disposition of the water results of that referendum, as well as the dry cask storage and other concerns. Because obviously the governor has talked about bringing more nuclear to Massachusetts, and when I hear that, I hear bringing more nuclear to Plymouth, because we're the only license for a nuclear plant that exists in the Commonwealth right now, and there's also the switchyard and the infrastructure. So if the governor wants more nuclear, that sounds like Plymouth would be getting more nuclear, and I have concerns personally about that, and I'm sure my fellow board members do as well in protecting the interests of this community in regards to to what that would look like and making sure that the old mess is cleaned up before a new mess is invited into town. Any other members of the board wish to chime in on this topic? All right. Anyone else have any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If you want me just to
Sure.
remind folks that about 7 to 9 months ago, the board has been working with the Association to Protect Cape Cod and the town of Barnstable and filing legal briefs to prevent Holtec from discharging nuclear waste both into the atmosphere and into the bay. So we continue to work with DEP on that. As you all know, Holtec has filed an appeal to the denial of their permit to discharge. And so the town, again, working with those other two agencies, is working as an intervener in that case.
Yes, and that's good to highlight as well. All right, anyone else in the room wish to speak about the, anything related to the decommissioning of the nuclear power plant? Anyone on the Zoom? Is it about this or is it a different subject?
There's no way to know.
That's true. It's one of life's great mysteries. Well, there's no one else. We haven't gone to the Zoom yet, so let's see what the Zoom entity would like to speak about. Mr. Bell, if you unmute yourself, you will have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Cantor, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thanks a lot for coming here. I really appreciate it. I think it's a great idea. Actually, you can circle back to me. These people have all got there early. I came in late and had no parking, so I figured I'd just watch on Zoom. So you can circle back to me at the end. I want to ask a question about the sand mine.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll keep you in mind. All right, anyone else in the room wish to talk about a topic we haven't addressed yet?
Sybil, did you have a question?
Not on a topic we haven't addressed. No new topic.
And anyone on Zoom have a question on something on a topic we have not addressed yet? No dice. Okay, Ms. Jones, on any topic, since we've exhausted new topics, unless one reemerges.
It's related. I can't say it's solely unique.
Okay.
Roz Jones, Precinct 9. Just a gentleman here brought up that there are these 3 parcels of land of interest right now. You know, the Holtec property, the 1,000 acres, and Atlantic Country Club. So if I'm on the select board and there's all of these varied interests, there's certainly not enough money to throw at all of them, right? I mean, that's just reality. Everybody wants their neighborhood to be protected, but it's probably not feasible. So whether in your capacity as select board members, you don't necessarily, decide that. There are limitations, zoning laws, et cetera, but in your capacity as a select board, what is your approach and criteria for prioritizing these various scenarios?
Sure. So that is a complicated question to answer, but answer it we shall endeavor to do. So with something, these 3 are very different, the Holtec parcel, the 1,000 acres, and the Atlantic Country Club. So Atlantic Country Club, until we got that first notice in March, where we'd heard a couple rumblings a few days earlier, but before that wasn't really on anybody's radar. So then that's an example of an unanticipated, unexpected issue that pops up and needs to be addressed, okay? So we didn't necessarily anticipate that this year, or any year in particular, we would be dealing with a right of first refusal on Atlantic Country Club. Things like that pop up all the time in small and large doses. Something like Holtec, the 1,530.35 acres held there, that is something that hasn't come on the market yet, but we are aware is likely to, in whole or in part, come on the market in the near future, meaning, and by near I mean, say, the next 5 to 10 years, but not immediate. So we're trying with Holtec, that's something, because it's something anticipated, we could try and get out ahead of that. So we've been trying to put more money in the Nuclear Mitigation Stabilization Fund to be used ideally for the purchase of all or part of that. We also have negotiated a pilot agreement with a $3 million account credit and an expanded right of first refusal on that parcel to try and put the town in a better position, because we know that this is out there, to be able to respond to that when some or all of it comes on the market. So that's one that, because we knew about it, we could get out ahead of it and try and do some work towards it. Now, when we negotiated that pilot back in 2023, we expected that the price, if it were to go on the market at that time, was between $35 and $50 million if it were to all go on the market at once. Obviously, real estate prices go up over time, so it would be more expensive now than it was then in all likelihood. But we are trying to position ourselves to be in the best position possible to be able to buy as much of that with our money versus other people's money, which we would consider partner with, but other people's money comes with strings. And if we buy with our money, then the town can have a chance in its own destiny. It's the single biggest undeveloped parcel in this community, and we think it's core to the future of our community choosing what happens on that particular parcel. Because for too long, private entities have chosen what is going to happen in Plymouth, and we believe that Plymouth should choose what happens in Plymouth. So, and then the 1,000 acres. The 1,000 acres is like Plymouth's Gordian knot. It has been in title hell for many years. There are parcels that we know we own. There are parcels that we think we own. There are parcels we know we don't own. And then there are parcels. And determining the situation and who owns those particular parcels is the rub in regards to the 1,000 acres. So, and there's been talk in various ways, in various cycles, about what to do with the 1,000 acres as an entity, but because it is not owned in its entirety by any single one person, individual, the future use of that is complicated. But right now, the town is considering what the town wants to do with the parcels that it owns. But we don't have any, that's also in executive right now, but we don't have anything definite yet that we can report on that, other than to say that it's something that we're reviewing. But we're not, unlike the other parcels, Holtec, we're worried about a private entity or private entities swooping in and taking it from us. We're not really worried about that with 1,000 acres because nobody really wants to be involved in that. So that's a separate and unique entity, and Atlantic Country Club is unexpected, and we try and, with those, it really depends on when something like that hits and what the financial health of the town is. So the best ways that we can, what the board recently has tried to do with something like Atlantic Country Club is first and foremost to try and get our house in order so we're in a better financial situation overall, which is good not just for things like surprise land purchases, but just to run a community. But another thing that we've tried to do last year was we advocated for and got through town meeting the land bank proposal, which would create which through a transfer fee with a number of exemptions would tie the need for more land purchases for the purposes of open space, affordable housing, and municipal use, like a new fire station or other municipal building, to the transfer of property. So the more people move in, the more money is in that fund, and we could use it for things like buying something like an Atlantic Country Club. Now, the land bank doesn't exist yet. That was the first of a three-step process. It passed town meeting, it needs to pass the legislature, and then it needs to come before the electorate here in town and pass a town-wide ballot initiative. So part of our conversation tomorrow with the governor is going to be talking about if she can help us get that land bank through on Beacon Hill to start that, so which will help us with future Atlantic Country Club type situations, although obviously it will not help us with Atlantic Country Club at this point. But those are some of the ways that we are trying to be more creative, because there's never enough money, there's never enough time, and there's always competing interests out there. But the more tools we have in the toolbox, particularly for those unexpected purchases, the better position we can be as a community to dealing with them as they come up. Any other members of the board wish to chime in? Yes, Mr. Cohan.
Land acquisitions, it's all about timing. And the town is presented with an option, whether it's the 1,000 acres or the 1,600 acres. We've been looking at that for nearly a couple of generations, what to do when that scenario arises. Having been involved in land acquisition negotiations and discussions over a period of time, it all boils down to, as you were a former finance committee member, you know it is about the funds that are available to the town. And they're limited. The CPA has responsibilities for housing and historical as well as open space. Many of the times we went to town meeting making recommendations to preserve open space. We were working with different departments within the town and with the state and nonprofits, trying to coordinate all of our resources to leverage what funds we had. So when we went to town meeting could see the benefits financially. So timing is important, and what we should be doing now is looking at scenarios that we should be looking at. We have a land use and acquisitions committee. They're looking at all the 61s that are coming in. We should be doing an assessment of the current 61s that are currently held in the town of Plymouth. We can do that through our assessor's office. They can provide a detailed list of chapter land, and we can start making assessments and prioritizing those, what is A, what is B, and what is C. But more importantly, start working with all these other, these state agencies and local nonprofits to find grant writing opportunities. The town of Plymouth has a grant writer. This is something that the grant writer could be looking at in terms of seeing the grant schedule and the timing of those schedules and how we might be able to successfully acquire a piece of land. That was something that I worked on for a number of years. There's a lot of moving parts of that process. Yes, there's been a noted of the land bank. The land bank did pass town meeting by 1 vote. It is now with the state. There are processes around land acquisition that I think is very important because we're using taxpayers' money, that the taxpayers should be involved in that discussion from the earliest point. So it's important that there is transparency in land acquisition, why we are buying land, what we're going to use that land for, and if we do enter into some negotiation with the party of developing that land, who is that and who we may sell land to. Those things are typically controlled by town meeting and always have been controlled by town meeting. There's a public discussion of what we're going to buy, what we're going to sell, what we're going to do with that piece of land, and why we are preserving it. But these things that you bring up are important. I think the town needs to coordinate its resources to be able to respond more efficiently when that timing opportunity comes up, when there's a land possibility in front of us. But like I said before, when I started to touch on this, is that some of these parcels we've known for many years that might come before the town of Plymouth. And we are doing things in getting mitigation funds and putting money aside for possible future acquisitions of parcels of land that we might be looking at in the very near future.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cohen. Any other members of the board? All right, any other members of the public want to talk about any topic? Go ahead.
Michelle Christensen again. So I introduced myself as the water lady way back, right? So I have several Precinct 9 town meeting member, and I have several residents that live in the ponds, and their water is ugly, to put it bluntly. Now, I realize it is a private organization that provides their water. However, I just think it's ethically and morally wrong that they don't have access to good, clean drinking water. And I would ask if the town would be willing to broker a meeting, work with Eversource, who provides their water, basically. They were, Aquarium, who was acquired by Eversource. So we've done some due diligence here. And the residents have been sending emails, asking, complaining about what they call dirty water. And yes, it has to do with flushing of the hydrants and things of that sort. But really, it's 2025. People in Plymouth should have access to good water. And so is there a way for the town to help broker a meeting, or at least, you know, it's a large corporation, so for the residents to go to them, that's not easy to do. So is that something you can help with?
Sure. So we put the second board outside because of the number of people in the room. but there's 2 poster boards out there with the email addresses of all the select board members as well as the select board as an entire entity. So if I don't know if members are in attendance, but that could be passed along, those contact information, and we could certainly try and, although we cannot directly involve ourselves in the management of a private water company, we could reach out saying that our constituents have concerns about the quality of water that they're being provided, in hopes that they could, at a minimum, they might respond to the municipality reaching out to them versus Betty Sue and Jimmy John, right? So we can try and be the 800-pound gorilla in the room to the extent that we are able to do so. Yes. Yes. So go ahead.
I'm gonna bounce around a little here.
Okay.
So I'm Sybil Holland, the town rep for Precinct 8. Good to see you, Deb. So because we were talking before about the traffic issues we have here in Cedarville, and I realize that the golf course sale is pending and might not even occur. But what I would hate for us to do as a town is to be chasing the traffic and safety problems that we would incur were we to purchase the country club the way we're needing to chase the problems here in Cedarville. So for people who are unaware of what the traffic and road situations in that neighborhood are, the actual principal roads servicing the country club area are either private roads or they are Town of Plymouth roads. The roads going from east to west are Carter Bridge Road, Valley Road, Upland Road, and then Little Sandy Pond Road, which actually, when it ends at Bourne Road, is just a dirt road. These are, right now, before more traffic is added, they are totally inadequate, and they're very narrow. They were built at a time when Plymouth had fewer people and smaller cars, and they're very dangerous. Some of them go right by the houses that abut the road. The intersection of Upland Road, where it meets Valley Road, is not even visible from all directions. So there have been high incidents of traffic accidents there. North of this is the intersection of Valley Road and Little Herring Pond Road and Carter Bridge. This intersection is also dangerous because of poor visibility. All in all, it's quite treacherous. So sometimes you do something because it seems like a good idea. Let's buy this property. We could use it. But then we've really bitten off an even bigger problem where we're going to have all these small roads already dangerous. And are we thinking about that now so that we're already ahead of what would we have to do to be able to accommodate the people who would potentially be living there, to assure that these roads that are already so stressed didn't become an even greater problem? It's not really a question, but I'm hoping that you'll tell me that we're already on that kind of thinking.
Sure. So, I mean, we are constantly assessing for safety and any roads that are controlled by the town. I would say, I mean, if we were to purchase Atlantic Country Club, it would not be our intention to build housing on it. So if we did purchase it,
Greater traffic density, for sure, right?
I guess it would really depend on what we purchased Atlantic Country Club in order to do, whether there'd be greater traffic density or not. But the town, if the town, without getting into the details of it, if the town were to purchase Atlantic Country Club, we would not be seeking to build housing on it. So other things that may happen there may bring, if you could just go to the mic, just so people can hear you at home.
Just as a consequence of purchasing it, there would be an increase in traffic for a whole variety of reasons, whatever we would do we wouldn't just buy it and leave it, would we? We would make adjustments. There would be traffic the way we're experiencing it here.
So that would be, yes, any future use of the land that the town engaged in would consider the infrastructure that goes there and the strain on that infrastructure that either work done there would cause as well as sustained future use. Yes.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, in the back, please.
Hi, again, thanks very much for this forum. I think it's great.
Doug Wood. I live in the Ponds of Plymouth, and I'm concerned about this country club. But before we moved here, we lived in Hingham. And Hingham actually bought a country club like this from somebody who was going to get out of that because they were going to put houses on it. And it was hugely unpopular, I guess, in Hingham at the time to do that. And now it's one of the most successful things that the town's done, and they're expanding on it and adding pools and tennis courts that were not there, the bowling alley and all sorts of things. Now, yes, that might cause extra traffic, but you might want to study the Hingham event and see how that turned out to be a positive thing and prevented a huge development.
Thank you. And again, while we cannot get into the specifics, we are assessing all possible ways to, all possible avenues of potential purchase and potential use of Atlantic Country Club if the town were to purchase it. Yes.
So I'm Andrea Nedley, Precinct 9, town meeting member. Longtime resident in the original section of the Ponds of Plymouth. I've lived there for about 34 years. In that time, I've seen a lot of growth and a lot of change at that first intersection off of Bourne Road. Considering with the Atlantic Golf Course, also you're talking about the safety of the residents and the roads that the town owns, being Lunds Way and Raymond Road. There are concerns that I see over the years, especially now if we're trying to add more housing, which I'm hoping, which you're saying is not possible or in the consideration. But any of the other developments that have been happening along Little Sandy Pond Road are causing a big major impact on my house, in my neighborhood, and that first intersection is seeing not an increase in safety, anybody there trying to monitor it, give out tickets, anything like that. They don't come. They sit on the other end of the development. And I just, is there any way that we can really come in and assess what's happening there now with the current developments that have happened on Little Sandy Pond Road? Because they're coming around and they're not stopping at stop signs. They're not doing the things that they should be. They're speeding. They're doing all the inappropriate behaviors that we don't want.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, so we can bring that to the attention of the DPW department in regards to there are traffic monitoring and metering that can be done there to assess, and part of the purpose of that is to see if there are any warrants for changing any signage, putting in stop signs where there aren't stop signs, speed bumps, things of that nature. So with those particular roads that you mentioned, we can put that on their radar. They are doing that throughout the town constantly, so it might not happen overnight, but we can certainly put that in the queue there to try and have those roads assessed to see if current conditions warrant a change in how they're being signed and regulated. Yes. Any other? Yes. Standing right there. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Bill Lawrence. I live on State Road with my wife, Sybil. And I originally came to speak about sand mining, but as I sat here and listened to what you each have had to say and the discussions that went on, it's more of a land use issue, that approach that I want to take on this, sort of a macro approach. I've started attending these meetings in the last year or so, and I've listened to many of you who have been here a long time, decades, and over generations, and some 100, and in some cases we go up to thousands of years through the indigenous folks that we have as our neighbors. I've sailed these waters. I've learned about the history of New England and enjoyed the natural beauty and performed my military service, but that was in Rhode Island. Does that count? I don't know whether I have to negate that, but that's where I was assigned. Sybil and I decided to move here 10 years ago to both retire and we did so for practical reasons as well as for personal. I'll admit that on the basis of the well-defined Massachusetts continuum of generational longevity, that comparatively, Sybil and I will be ranked somewhere between the terrible twos and potty training in terms of our timing. So I'm sure that we don't have that time, but we are very concerned. Sybil is actually an elected person. She's really been heavily involved. And I care about what's happening. And I stand before you with 40 years experience working in the public sector, both as a volunteer appointed as well as an official for the city that I lived in up till here. And I've seen firsthand the problems that you guys have and we have balancing the quality of life that we look for and the tax base that we need to preserve. And we've balanced that by trying to find the right rate of growth, the type of growth that we can generate to support all that. And the one thing that I've seen in the various committees and positions I've had is that the people who have experience, and I'm seeing it here tonight, I'm glad a lot of the things you pointed out on the stand that I had not heard before, I've heard for the first time tonight. I'm glad to see that happening, as well as to see such a large crowd. We all know that without an informed and active electorate, our democracy can't survive. And one of the things that we have to think about is how we create a legacy. Our legacy in terms of what we want to leave behind and who, and what kind of a place that we want to be able to live in. And the people that I've worked with, who I've seen who really have that as a priority, really prevail. Their reputations and their names and the legacy that they leave behind is something that's very important.
Mr. Lawrence, you've exceeded your 3 minutes. How
I'm
much
very
additional
sorry.
time would you like to ask for? I can give you a minute,
Thank you.
or I can give you
The
longer.
thing that I'm concerned
Okay.
about in all of this is the concept of flooding. I did some research, and we know that there are billions of dollars that are being spent every single year throughout America, through the Northeast and California. We've seen what's happened there, Tennessee. We've seen the Portland. The flooding has become a very critical issue to all of us, and that boils down to land use. One of the reasons why I think we've survived, and I'm looked it up, and Massachusetts placed 50th in the loss of people, deaths per capita. That's 0.02 people per year, because we have a very strict balance at this point between our developed and undeveloped lands. And because we have so much sand, and we are really, our land is just mostly sand, and that's become a very expensive commodity, and that's why we're all discussing that at this point. But we can't afford to let this water level be, where's the lady, on the water, what you're going through. We can't afford that. Water is precious, and we're one of the few states that are totally independent. We take care of ourselves. We have that water. And what we need to do is make sure that the decisions that we all make, us as voters and you as administrators, that we really preserve that balance between nature so that we can continue to live in the country that we're living in and the state that we're living in. It's a responsibility that we all have, you as elected officials and we as citizens, and I hope that we can take that focus and take it further. It's our future. We can't afford, just one more statement. New York City, way back in the 17th and 18th century, spent millions of dollars to build an aqueduct system, and the city has some of the best water in the world. If we had to do that here today because of what's happening with the sand mining, it would be in the billions of dollars to provide that. And we need water. Water is the next oil. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Yes, you haven't spoken yet, please.
My name is Jason Platt. I'm a newly elected town meeting member of Precinct 9. I'm not the best public speaker, so bear with me.
one of the issues that was raised when I was door knocking was that we don't have enough streetlights. So the way that works is that each individual homeowner would have to contact Eversource and then pay to have a new streetlight installed. So I was curious how we could get some traction going to have municipal town lighting. So that way, and I think it would be beneficial because I know downtown they want to put up security cameras and that would be a good housing spot for that. In addition, we need speeding traps or something, so I didn't know if we would want to have any kind of traffic monitoring systems. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So currently the streetlights throughout the community, with perhaps a few rare exceptions, are owned by Eversource. There's been conversations about the municipality acquiring those lights, although from my recollection, although I was not directly involved in those discussions, there was disagreement on the cost of it and some of the state of some of them. Some of them are not in. A lot of the complaints we get about streetlights are that their streetlights don't work because they think a lot of municipalities own their streetlights, but we do not. And so a priority that I expressed at that time was, if we're going to acquire these lights, are we going to be able to do a better job than Eversource is? Because we don't want to just acquire them and then not be able to, because our DPW department is already trying to deliver a number of other services throughout the community, such as improving roads is one of those. But we want to make sure if we're taking on something like that, that we can meet or exceed what Eversource is able to do in the private sector. But I don't know, Mr. Brindisi, if you have anything else on the status of municipal streetlights?
Well, I will say that we often get complaints about streetlights being out, and as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, the town doesn't own the streetlights. I asked Jade to pull up the town's website again. We started a new program about 2.5 years ago called See-Click Fix. And so for simple complaints like potholes, maybe there's a dead animal on your street, streetlights, you can go to the town's website. So can we go to the homepage first? So if you just go to the homepage on the town's website, you just scroll down. It's right here. It's right up front. You click on the button that says Report a Concern. Right there. Go ahead. And so then this right here, using streetlights as an example, you just scroll down, keep going. And you see all these various types of complaints you can enter. Keep going. And you can keep, and so we will find streetlights. It's at towards the bottom. Street light should be coming up.
Do you have someone stealing things from the
Street light issues? No, we're working on that. That's gonna be an add-on. So you would just click on street light issues, and then this is a little bit slow. You would then enter your location, and what's really good about this system is if you enter your email address, once they route that concern and it gets resolved, you'll get a notification that the complaint has been resolved. So for simple issues like streetlights, I would encourage you to use this because this complaint gets routed to the department that manages those types of issues. So if it's a dead animal, that'll get routed to animal control. If it's a pothole, it gets routed to DPW and so on and so forth.
And I would add, if you use See-Click Fix on a computer, you have to sort of manually put in your location, but if you use it on a phone or something with a location feature, you can actually put a very precise location as to where you see a pothole or a streetlight issue or a stray dog or other various things. Okay. Any other? Yes.
So I would just like to bring up the topic of 71 Hedges Pond Road. Mr. Brindisi, just earlier you said that the next step is going forward, that the excavation, that there's also going, paths are put in. I think if you would clarify for us a couple of things. You know, in this community, we've been really worried about this. We feel like we've been chasing it. We were uninformed. Suddenly it was right on our plate, and we had to run after it and say, wait, stop. And there were a lot of concerns. So it's for sale now, and yet we're going forward with some work, it sounds like. So my question are, who owns it, and why is work going forward if it's for sale? And I guess the big question is, since the town sold it,
and kind of for a good deal, does the town have any leverage at all anymore about what happens to that property? Do they have any say at all if someone comes in and buys it to talk to the town? What do we need? We didn't need frankly, two ice skating rinks and field warehouses. We didn't need that. There are plenty of things we do need that could benefit the town and benefit our community. But what's happening and who owns it? And going forward, does the town have any leverage? Thank you. Sure. So right now, as far as I know, Pontiff owns the property. The town's ability to control what happens on the land, because we do not own the land, is sold by prior action of town meeting, a prior action of a prior select board, not the members sitting here, but the town's ability to control it is really limited to, as of right now, what our zoning bylaw says, and whether a future use that is not in conformity with what was presented was within the existing bylaw, something they could do by right, or if they need a special permit or other type of permission. But Mr. Brindisi, did you want to further clarify some of the statements that you made in regards to 71 hedges towards the beginning, what the status of 71 hedges is right now, just as a refresher for folks?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you based upon the information I received today that we received a notice from Pontiff's attorney that they are at the process that they're grading the site. They wanted to let folks know that there will be some gravel removal, so you will see trucks, and that's part of the incidental gravel removal, part of the permitting process that was issued by the planning board. They state in their email that they're finalizing the terms of several large square footage leases that will bring significant employment to the town. The building commissioner did also identify that the property is ready for the installation of the pads for future development.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Cohan?
In light of that, Mr. Brindisi, as they start to move forward on exercising the permit that they have, the bylaw is clear on how much they can disturb and remove at a time at 5 acres and to stabilize the remaining of the site. So I hope that the oversight of that permit and the conditions is top on inspectional services in terms of those amenities around it, because now we're going to get into the actual pulling back of the soil, taking out the sand, and that's when we get the debris moving around the neighborhood. So I hope that that is something that you can bring to their attention.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other board members wish to? All right. We do have someone on the Zoom, you said, Jade, yes?
I have a question.
I understand we have someone on the Zoom. Thank you. Mr. Bell, you are...
Yes.
There you go.
Can you hear me, Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Great. Dan Bell, 9 Stetson Court, Precinct 12. I'll be quick because I don't want to take up the time of the people there, and I know somebody's had their hand up, but this is on the topic of the sand mining. And my question is, there's a similar situation at 10 Collins Ave in the industrial park, which has been sitting dormant. The property has been targeted as another sand mining situation. I was just wondering if we have any update on the progress on what was intended to be there actually going in there. Also, I just want to give a shout out to the local scene. They're doing an amazing job with a road show. This is the first time that they've ever brought that.
All right.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, 10 Collins and what's happening at 10 Collins is not really on my radar in particular. I have seen the work progressing there, and I know there's been a lot of wonder as to what is happening, but I don't know the specifics, and I don't think that.
Yeah,
Derek,
I don't know the future use of the property. I do know they have completed their gravel removal process, though.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Cohen.
And Mr. Brindisi, also at 10 Collins, I think we need to look at the stabilization of the site after the mining, after the sand mining. It does seem to be beyond the 5 acres in the stipulation of the bylaw, and the level of stabilization is weak at best. So as we move out of the spring into the summer and it gets drier and the wind starts blowing, it becomes a major safety hazard on the highway heading south. So I think that's another place where we might want to ask Inspection Services how we are on the stabilization of the surface area of the site.
We will do that.
Agreed.
All right. Somebody in the back? Yes.
Paula Marcoux. I guess the juxtaposition of these two sites that you've just mentioned has really brought to mind an issue that is sort of came to our local attention a lot during the 71 Hedges Pond Road ZBA hearings, and that's looking into the place of the Plymouth Foundation in the leadership of the town as a quasi-governmental body, non-elected officials, with overlap with actual officials of the Town of Plymouth. As to their actual charity status, I leave that to the AG's office to decide, but they're being involved in the buying and selling of properties and many other aspects of governmental goings-on in Plymouth. I just wonder, what's the future of town leadership's involvement in that? Addressing conflict of interest seemed to be a really important point to undertake now, and there's been a real shaking of confidence in town government in this area in the last year or so.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So currently the town has an MOU with the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation. As part of that MOU, we have 3 seats on the board of that foundation, one of which is the town manager, one of which is the director of planning development, and one of which is either the chair of the select board or a designee of the chair of the select board. So in order to change that structure, we would need to update the MOU in order to do that if we wanted to revise whether we had seats at all, who had those seats, and whether designees could be put in some of the 2 of the other seats. Speaking right now, the only one that we can really switch out would be whether the chair of the select board sits on the board of the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation or not. That would be, and under the MOU, that's a decision that is within the chair's purview alone. It's a designee only of the chair. I personally am uncomfortable serving on the board of the foundation at the present time because I hear the concerns of the community about the issues there. So I am actually looking to appoint a designee to that seat rather than serve on it myself. And I think going forward, when there is an opportunity to revisit the MOU, that is something that I imagine the board will consider as to what we want the future of that relationship to be. I do think 71 Hedges is obviously a controversial topic for a number of reasons, and I certainly understand that, particularly in the venue that we're at. Another thing that the foundation does do, though, on an annual basis is the Blue Economy Conference, which I do think does provide a benefit to the community. So while 71 Hedges is unpopular, I do think there are good things that the foundation does. I like to see more of the good and less of the bad, long story short. But I think in the near term, I don't think it's appropriate for me to serve in that position. So I will not be serving in that position, because I'd like to focus on hearing from residents, addressing concerns, and not having management of that particular micro fiefdom at this time. So that is my intention. That is something we can control starting on day one here, but that is something, and I have someone that is considering whether they would like to be that designee or not, and waiting for a response from them when they've had the opportunity to do their due diligence and decide whether that is something that fits in with their life and is something they can do. So that is my response as to that. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. My name is Meg Sheehan. I'm a fifth-generation resident of Plymouth and property owner here. My two questions relate to sand mining. My first question is that you heard about the two sand mining bills that have been filed at the State House. One is for a moratorium on sand mining in Plymouth and Bristol counties, and the second is for a task force to study the health and environmental impacts of sand mining, including the impacts on the aquifer. The two bills were heard before the State Joint Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on June 3rd, last week. Senator Fernandez is the vice chair of that joint committee. 35 people and groups testified in support of those two bills from people from around the state, including residents who live next to sand mines in the town of Dalton. The hearing lasted over 2 hours, and the people testifying in support and the groups included the Conservation Law Foundation, a regional law foundation that advocates for the public interest on environmental law issues, and the Sierra Club, as well as many residents impacted by sand mining. So my first question is, will the Select Board support the two bills? That's House 918 and House 948. And will you ask Representatives Badger and Lenatra and Senator Fernandez to support the two bills and sign on as co-sponsors? And tomorrow, when you meet with the governor, will you ask the governor to support these two bills? So my second question also relates to sand mining. You may recall at the May 20th Select Board meeting, a resident, I believe his name was Dan Cook, a town meeting member, testified at public comment about his experience with sand dust from the sand mine at 71 Hedges Pond Road. The board did not respond at that time. Mr. Cook stated that that day or that week he had driven his motorcycle down Hedges Pond Road and was covered with sand dust from the sand mining operation at 71 Hedges Pond Road. At the June 3rd hearing at the State House last week, among the experts who testified were scientists from the Olin College of Engineering in Needham, and these scientists testified that they had sampled sand dust from sand mines in Plymouth County.
You've exceeded your 3 minutes. How much additional time?
Just a few sentences, thank you.
I will give you an additional minute.
They tested the sand, and they determined that it was respirable crystalline silica, which causes silicosis and is regulated by OSHA with limits to protect workers from exposure. My question is, will the Select Board recommend that the building inspector or the Board of Health require the operation at 71 Hedges Pond Road to test the sand that Mr. Cook was exposed to determine whether it constitutes respirable crystalline silica? And if not, why not? Thank you.
So, Mr. Brindisi, would you care to take a crack at that second question about the health, as a former public health official yourself, more of your bailiwick than mine?
I don't know if I totally understand the question. It sounds like there was a resident who suggests he was exposed to silica dust from 71 Hedges Pond Road. So air quality is a complicated issue. It's regulated through DEP Regulation 710 CMR. Those types of complaints typically forwarded to DEP. So Ms. Sheehan, if you'd like to reach out to that resident, I would suggest they speak to DEP officials.
Okay. No, not at this time. So I'm still answering the questions you've already posed. So in regards to the first question, in regards to the individual bills that you that have been filed, so obviously they're on Beacon Hill working their way through the legislative process. We expect that our state delegation will do their due diligence in regards to the specifics of those bills. We do have frequent conversations with the state delegation on a number of matters that affect local issues. So we will be in communication with them in regards to the passage of those bills as they work their way through the process. Just the initial testament of the hearing, I imagine there's several additional rounds to go through, so we will be keeping an eye on that legislation as it works its way through the system.
Mr. Chairman, if I could correct myself, it's 310 CMR, not 710.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brindisi. Did you want to?
Yeah, just to speak to one of the questions on H918, H91948. I'm not speaking for the board, I'm speaking as a resident. I've read both of them and I support them. So if that's a question, that's an answer.
Thank you. Any other members of the board wish to? Okay. Any other questions from any other residents in physical attendance? And Jade, anyone on Zoom? No. All right, one last call for any other questions. All right, Ms. Downs.
Hi, Lori Downs. I live in Precinct 17. Not so much a question, but a compliment. That dog park in Cedarville, best dog park I've ever been into. It's so well designed. It's got logs and rocks and bark, and my dog just loves, the jumping, and the dogs run in packs around the trees, and whoever designed it, I think it's award-winning. It's the best dog park I've been to in the area, and I just really want to thank you for doing this. And I think it's my understanding that we're working on another one in Forges Field, or in that area. And whoever the architect was for this dog park, I hope that you use the same one for future dog parks. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Steve Lantang, Precinct 10. I first want to congratulate Mr. Cohen and Ms. Iaquinto for this, and I'm looking forward to how this new committee is going to take the town into the future. The question I have is, are you going to be going all around town, like in West Plymouth, doing this too?
Sure. So right now there's different cycles that the select board has in terms of our mandate with town meeting, which occupies a lot of our time in other segments of the year. So typically during the summer, this is my third year on the board. Typically during the summer, we had done what was called a summer schedule, which we would meet like every other week. I didn't particularly care for that, and I wanted us to meet year-round. But one of the reasons that we had met on a summer schedule was there was generally less work during the summer for the select board to take up. So it was a great opportunity for us to do things like this on the road, to get out in front of residents, because obviously, as you saw, we had a pretty light agenda before we entered into this public question and answer session. that's been going on for a little upwards of 2 hours at this point. So right now, we have the capacity to do 4 of these over the summer months to get out to different areas of the community. Then in the fall, we're going to be entering into prep for the fall town meeting season. And then in between our ramp down from fall town meeting and our ramp up into spring town meeting, we would have another opportunity if we wanted to in, say, November, December, where we could go to, say, a West Plymouth or a North Plymouth. Personally, so the chair, you may have heard differently recently, but the chair sets the date, time, and location of meetings. It's an administrative function of the chair. So I wanted, personally, to come to Cedarville first, because I know that Cedarville often feels ignored and not heard by the people at 26 Court Street. As I said earlier, I come to Cedarville, despite where I live, I do come to Cedarville fairly frequently, and I know it took me 25 minutes to get here from my house. I live in North Plymouth. I don't want to be Sarah Palin, but I can see Kingston from my house. And so it takes me about 10 minutes to get to Town Hall. So for other residents of North Plymouth, they're fairly close to Town Hall. I realize they're not exactly there. They can't walk it easily, but they're closer. I grew up in West Plymouth, I grew up off Esta Road, which is off Carver Road. About 15 minutes, maybe 20 if you get a bad set of lights on Samoset. But I wanted to come down here first and then Southwest Plymouth next, because I thought those were the areas of the community that felt the most neglected and also literally lived the farthest away. So that's why you guys were a priority for me and for us, and why the order of operations is the way it is. But I personally see no reason why, when we have that lull again after fall town meeting, we couldn't do, say, a West Plymouth and a North Plymouth version of this as well. I know we've got some people here from different areas of the community as well, which is encouraging. But I think there is a benefit in trying to meet residents where they are and hear the concerns and issues that they have in their community. Some people have said recently that the business of Town Hall is supposed to be conducted at Town Hall, and I could not agree less with that statement. I think that the Town Hall is supposed to be doing the work of this community, and if we sit in our ivory tower and don't get out in this community and see what people are dealing with, walk the streets and drive the streets that they drive, breathe the air that they breathe, drink the water that they drink, then you're not going to be able to represent people throughout a 105 square mile community from 26 Court Street. So that's why I wanted to be here, we wanted to be here. That's why we're going to try and continue to be here over the next few months. We're going to have to take a bit of a hiatus from the road show to focus on some of our other work, but I do think it's something that we could resume and maybe get on a regular rotation of doing this, so that we can continue to meet residents where they are and improve their opinion of their government. We can't solve all your problems in one evening. I can't attest to that, but I do think that a lot of it is people want to be heard and they want to be seen, and I hope at a minimum, even if you didn't get your question answered tonight to your satisfaction or your problem solved, at least you feel better about the government of your community and the management of your town. I want to thank PAC TV. I want to thank Casey Kennedy and Jade Anderton, and who did a lot of work to make this night happen. But I think it's been, and I want to thank everybody that came out, whether you came out down the street from somewhere in Cedarville, or you came out from downtown or West Plymouth, or wherever you hail from. We appreciate you being here, and we're going to continue to be there too. So thank you all. All right, our public seems to be voting with their feet. So,
yeah, anytime. Tom McKay, good to see everybody.
While we have a couple things left. That's, Plymouth provides Do we have an any- alternate source for electricity. Do we have any select board discussion? We could wait till next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't,
Any,
he's more expensive.
anyone want to chime in right
I
now?
was going to.
I just had a meeting on that last
Yeah.
week.
Okay.
We're going back out to bid. Right now, the bids that we have
Okay, Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate some of the things that Mr. Brindisi said earlier today. I had the pleasure to speak at the Arise honoree reception earlier today. I want to thank Commissioner Michelle Brady and Assistant Commissioner Emily Wilson for their work, and really the whole HHS team. It was a really moving experience, and it highlights a lot of the often unseen work that happens to support some of the folks who are most in need in our community. So I just wanted to echo Mr. Brindisi's congratulations to that team and thank them for all of their efforts.
All right, thank you, Mr. Golden. Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes. I just wanted to add my thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. As a new Select Board member, I'm still coming up to speed on a lot of these issues, so it was wonderful for me to hear what's top of mind for all of you. And as Mr. Canty said, we hope to do more of this in the future. So improving communication and engagement with the community was one of my priorities. I would love to get your feedback on what went well with this evening, since this is our first time on the road, and what we can do to improve the next one. So if you could email us, me, all of us, that would be fantastic. In between times when we're not going to be able to be out on the road, if anyone has any thoughts or ideas about how we can stay connected to what's happening, because there are things happening in real time that we would love to stay on top of and know what you're thinking about those. So if you could just keep us in mind and just email us with any ideas and suggestions you have, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Cohen?
Again, I'll just reiterate what the chairman has indicated, and my colleague Deb Iaquinto, that I'm very appreciative of allowing us this opportunity to move the Select Board meeting to Cedarville. It's a very, very important village. I'm very connected to it. I grew up here as a kid 60 years ago in 1965. Being almost 10 months old, my mother and father took the family to the beach here. It was the first beach I ever stepped foot on. So I'll be celebrating that this summer. But I remember Cedarville when it was Bruno's Corner, and when Bruno was behind the counter selling us milk and bread in the newspaper. But it's an important village. It's grown rapidly. We're meeting these challenges, and this is a good thing. I think that keeping the dialogue open between the village and the town of Plymouth and all of its components, the profession, the staff and the elected officials working together, I think there's nothing that can stop us from making this village center the envy of the South Shore. And I'd also like to take this time to indicate that I had the chance to go, was invited to the Plymouth North High School Class of 2025 graduation. It was really an impressive, I haven't been up on the Mario Romano Field since 1983 when I graduated, so it was a real pleasure and a real treat to participate in that graduation ceremony. The principal, amazing remarks to his students, and the valedictorian, a gentleman, Evan Johnson, did an amazing job. If you have a chance to go on PAC television and pull up that speech, it was one of the best valedictorian speeches I've heard, followed by the principal, Peter Purcelli of Plymouth North. They did such a great job, the students and the kids persevering through 4 years of high school, through the pandemic and all of the different adversities that young people have to face on top of that. So this was an amazing class. If you have a chance, take a look at that graduation ceremony.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cohen, and congratulations to the graduating class of both Plymouth North and Plymouth South High Schools. Any other new business? Any letters? Any old business? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn, having concluded our business and exhausted our public?
So moved.
It has been moved by Mr. Golden.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Iaquinto. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
And myself, yes. We are adjourned for the evening. Thank you, everybody.